Chapter 41 Number 002 Imitator, calling out Chu Ru. If not, Yang Imo would not say such a sure thing. After learning that The Classic of Mountains and Seas is a civilization trial manual left by the ancient ancestors, now the researchers in the institute are researching frantically, trying to guess which of the monsters will come in the second round. I wasn't quite sure at first, but after reading these 3 news articles, I can almost pinpoint the identity of the monster. Yang Imo nodded, the corners of his mouth raised slightly. This is the benefit of having the civilization trial manual. After the monster arrives, you only need to follow the pictures and check the seats, and you can clearly know the various characteristics and habits of the monsters. Subsequently, he picked up the Jing of Mountains and Seas and opened the chapters of Nanshan Jing. Eventually, I stopped on one of the paragraphs. As Zhao Ziyan saw this, he quickly came forward and read this record. Softly. 500 miles to the east, there is the mountain where I prayed. There are many gold and jade on it, and there are many rhinoceros, and elephants below. There is a bird, which looks like a turtle with a white head, 3 legs, and a human face. Its name is Chu Ru, and its sound is its own name. I read it, her body trembled, and she quickly thought of one of the 3 news articles. The body of an old man disappeared. The family claimed to have seen a white bird. It coincides perfectly with the description in this record of its shape is like a bald head with a white head. Yes, the monster that descended this time was called Chu Ru by our ancient ancestors. Yang Imo nodded, and then explained, it is a type of demon clan. He is not very powerful in combat, but he is extremely good at disguise and can completely fake the real thing. Even his DNA, brainwaves, and memory are the same as those of humans. That's why the United States and other countries conducted rigorous investigations for 3 days, but were unable to catch any trace of them. In previous lives, the countries have tried their best, but have not found a way to identify Chu Ru in disguise. Eventually, it has caused a devastating blow to countries around the world. Maybe it's because of the butterfly effect that China has received an SSS level evaluation. Chu Ru from his previous life appeared in the 3rd round of the civilization trial, and this time in the 2nd round of trials, Chu Ru arrived early. Invisibly, the difficulty of the trial has also been raised to a higher level. Even DNA and brainwaves cannot identify them. They are still so forbearing, so their intentions must be quite big. Zhao Ziyan took a breath of air, her eyebrows flashing. It is the color of worry, it doesn't matter. Yang Imo smiled softly, pointed to the Book of Mountains and Seas and said, the ancient ancestors have left us his weaknesses in the trial manual. Zhao Ziyan was stunned, immediately looked at the text record that I just read, watched it several times. I didn't find Chu Ru's weakness. The last sentence. Yang Imo spoke lightly and reminded him. The last sentence is, Zhao Ziyan looked at The Classic of Mountains and Seas and suddenly realized, his singing is his own name, his singing is his own name. Could it be said that his name is weakness? Live broadcast room. Since the start of the civilization trial, the number of people online in the live broadcast room has always remained above 10 million. In addition to listening to popular science, more people regard it as a platform for communication and interaction. What happens in daily life, they will be shared in the live broadcast room and communicate with other netizens. Oh, I took several days off to look for monsters, but I didn't find a single monster hair. Do you think it's the monsters that are afraid of us? Impossible. Didn't you hear what Dean Yang said? The mission of the monsters is to destroy our civilization. I suspect they are holding back a big wave. I have read through The Classic of Mountains and Seas these days. Which monster do you think is coming this time? The screen full of barrages rolled across. What netizens talk about the most is the topic about the 2nd round of monsters. The whole people mobilized, dig 3 feet into the ground, and none of the monsters in the 2nd round were found. It was quite confusing for them. This time. The scene in the live broadcast room suddenly switched, and Zhao Ziyan, dressed formally, appeared in the camera, looking solemn. He said in a deep voice, everyone in the live broadcast room, please make an urgent announcement now. After research by our institute, the identity of the monster that came in the 2nd round has been locked. Its name is Chu Ru. Our institute it is now officially named Imitator number 002. Imitator 002 is extremely good at disguise. Through contact, it can perfectly copy anyone's DNA, memory, brainwaves, and other information, and change it at will to look real. BR's the relatives and friends around you are most likely Chu Ru in disguise. If you want to confirm, just call his name 3 times. Hear this, the tens of millions of netizens in the live broadcast room instantly became excited. The barrage was overwhelming, densely packed. Liangcheng. In a certain community. A man was resting on his girlfriend's lap, eating grapes, and enjoying a happy couple time. Mobile phone in hand, interact and communicate with netizens in the live broadcast room. Suddenly noticed the emergency announcement issued by Zhao Ziyan. Real or fake? This round of monsters can perfectly disguise themselves, and even their memories can be copied? He swallowed. He looked up at his girlfriend, who raised her cute eyebrows. Skin is as crystal clear as snow, exquisite facial features. There is also a pair of long legs, which are currently being pillowed under his head. Xu Ru? Xu Ru? Xu Ru? With suspicion he shouted out Xu Ru's name 3 times in a row. Next second, something happened that made his scalp tingle and his pupils tremble. I saw, in his memory, his sweet and lovely girlfriend glared at him hatefully. Next, the body is twisted, constantly changing. The tiny clothes on his body were stretched out, and a third claw-like part grew out between his slender legs. Not long after, its true colors were exposed. It is exactly the same as the description in the classic of mountains and seas. White head, human face, 3 legs. It looks extremely scary. Zizhou. A university. In the dormitory. Brothers, come and watch. An announcement has been made in the live broadcast room. Zheng Fan, who was watching the live broadcast, shouted and quickly called his 3 roommates in the same dormitory. Holy shit! The institute named the second round of Monsters 002 Imitator, and said that he is very good at disguise and may hide himself as anyone around us. As a senior member of the folk monster hunting organization in the past few days, he skipped classes continuously and walked around the streets, searching for the whereabouts of monsters, but nothing was found. I didn't expect. The monster can actually achieve perfect disguise, copy anyone's memory, and keep changing. The announcement also said that as long as you call Xu Ru's name 3 times in a row, they can be exposed. Zheng Fan looked at the 3 roommates excitedly. Let's go inside the school and start investigating. He stood up, just about to go out. Suddenly, I noticed that the expressions of the 3 roommates were a little strange, and they were not as excited as expected. My heart couldn't help but thump. Swallowed. I read it 3 times in succession tentatively. Xu Ru. Xu Ru. Xu Ru. Chapter 42. 12-sided crystal. The words just fell. His 3 close roommates turned into strange birds with 3 heads and 3 legs. At the same time, China, emergency notices rang out on TV stations and radio stations everywhere. Announcement of this matter. What do you mean? Is this a deep werewolf killing? Can you change your identity and disguise at will? I remember that although the 001 undead can disguise itself, it can only disguise itself as a certain fixed person, right? Real or false? They can also copy memory and body information? I just opened the Book of Mountains and Seas, which records Xu Ru's appearance. He has a white head and 3 feet. It still has a human face. The people were shocked at first, then try to test it on the people around you, called 3 times in a row. Xu Ru is like a spell, with magical power. After chanting, those perfectly disguised monsters all showed their prototypes, exposed to the eyes of the world. Bird head, human face, 3 legs, appearance, exactly the same as the description in the classic of mountains and seas. A series of reporting calls were made to the Monster Research Institute. Yanjing Monster Research Institute, are you ready? Yang Yamo looked at Zhang Yongguang and others in front of him with a solemn expression. Via the reporting hotline, they obtained the accurate address of the monster, always on standby. Zhang Yongguang and others said in unison, with fighting intent surging in their eyes. With the cooperation of the military taking their lead, there will be a comprehensive crackdown on 002 imitators across the country. Today is different from the past. Each of them is equipped with immortal armor, which is made from the horns and scales of the 001 immortal. Well equipped. As long as you don't encounter second-level monsters, ordinary first-level monsters can't even break through their defenses. Let's go! Yang Yamo saluted everyone. An order was given. The demon hunting team responded to the call and began to carry out the mission of eradication across the country. The United States Department of Defense, Minister, there are the latest developments in China. A piece of information was immediately delivered to Jobs' desk. What? Huaxia deciphered the identity of the monster so quickly? Jobs was surprised and delighted, and quickly took out the Book of Mountains and Seas he carried with him. He flipped through quickly. I found the record about Xu Ru. The brows were always furrowed. A rare relief. This also means the monsters coming in the second round are no longer full of unknowns. Next, he gave the order decisively, without further delay. Immediately copy all the methods of China, notify the people of the United States, and dispatch a special monster hunting team to suppress monsters across the country. Use all the military power of the United States to eliminate all 002 imitators in the country as soon as possible. This round of civilized trials. We in the United States must surpass China and obtain an SSS-level evaluation. He clenched his fists, there is strong ambition in his eyes. The last round of trials, the great United States has just received an A-level evaluation, and the physical fitness of all members has increased by 10%, but the entire population has improved by 100%, made him jealous. Now, the opportunity finally came, under the same conditions. He believes that the United States will never do worse than China. Gaul. As one of the 5 permanent countries. At this time, he was also troubled by the domestic 001 undead and the second round of monsters that had not yet appeared. Demonstrations by the people, it's getting worse. When the senior officials were at their wits' end, the intelligence department also submitted a piece of information about China. It caused a sensation throughout Gaul. Quick. The Ministry of Information, Propaganda Department, TV stations, and the Internet quickly informed the whole country of the weaknesses of the 002 imitators. Copy the rest of the actions from China. After confirming that the intelligence is correct, Gaul made a decision quickly, copying China's response plan exactly like the United States, the whole process, crisp and neat, without any hesitation. At the same time, globally, after seeing the monster information released by China, all countries made the same decision, copy China's response measures, act quickly to suppress 002 imitators within the country. Quietly, China has become a guiding light for countries around the world. 3 days later, the 7th day of the second round of civilization trials, China Monster Research Institute. Dean, after 3 consecutive days of suppression, our country has captured a total of 28002 imitators. They have been sent to the laboratory. But their vitality is too fragile, far inferior to the 001 undead, and their maximum survival time is 3 hours. Zhao Ziyan stood in front of Yang Mo, reporting on the recent situation. Thinking of the laboratory in the courtyard, I couldn't help but shudder, and the hairs on my back stood up. At this laboratory, it was pioneered by Yang Mo and was specially used to dissect and study monsters. Influenced by Yang Mo, the researchers inside are all perverts and lunatics. Tragic monster experiments are carried out every day. 3 days to come. 16,002 imitators died on the experimental platform. Even though we are far apart, from time to time, you can also hear shrill wails coming from the laboratory. What about research? Has any progress been made? Yang Mo put down the Book of Mountains and Seas in his hand and asked. Zhao Ziyan took a deep breath. Organized my thoughts. He replied seriously. Through dissection, the experimental team found a 12-sided crystal inside the white head of the 002 imitator. The crystal seems to contain strange energy, and its specific function is unknown. Still to be studied. Hearing this, Yang Mo's expression moved slightly. He nodded and said, "Let them focus their research on the electromagnetic field." Zhao Ziyan was a little surprised, but he didn't ask any more questions and wrote down Yang Mo's explanation in the memo. What is the current situation in other countries? Then, Yang Mo asked again. After our actions, all countries around the world immediately copied our measures and actively suppressed the 002 imitators in their own countries. Zhao Ziyan was familiar with all the treasures and then reported, so far, the United States has suppressed 002 imitators. 34,002 imitators. The Gaul Kingdom suppressed 25,002 imitators. The Sakura Kingdom suppressed 20,002 imitators. White Bear Country, in the current official data, the United States has suppressed the most 002 imitators, followed by China, followed by Gaul and Sakura. They did a good job copying their homework. Yang Mo shrugged and chuckled. Actually, it was his intention to announce Chu Ru's identity and let countries around the world follow suit. 002 The potential threat of imitators is too great. It does not only affect one country. If other countries fail to control it, China will also suffer greatly. In the past life, China has suffered losses in this regard. Being held back by a group of pig teammates. Purge the monsters in your own country, but we have been facing the threat of overseas imports. Chapter 43, Pop the Champagne at Halftime? Global turmoil, the United States. A press conference is being held quietly. At the request of the media, the Ministry of National Defense held the press conference to respond to questions from domestic reporters. As the person in charge Jobs stood in front of countless spotlights and cameras, smiled politely. The mood is quite pleasant. Reporters rushed to ask questions one after another. Mr. Jobs, according to official data, our country has suppressed nearly 200,001 undead and 34,002 imitators in the past few days. Is this data true? Many netizens said that since the second round of civilized trials, all the measures taken by the Ministry of National Defense are copying those of China. Do you have anything to explain? Polls in various states in our country show that people are happy. The index is increasing significantly, and the satisfaction level with the Ministry of National Defense has also increased to the passing level. What do you want to say to the people of the United States? I heard that our country's Scientific Research Institute has conducted research on 002 imitators. We have made some breakthroughs. Can you give us more details? Facing reporters from various media, Jobs looked calm and unhurried, smiled slightly. You have too many questions, so I will answer them one by one. First of all, the data released by our country is absolutely true, and there is no fraud. To be precise, in the past 3 days, our country has suppressed a total of 187,001 undead and 34,002 imitators. In terms of the second round of monsters, our country's achievements, it has completely surpassed China. The facts have proven who is the only superpower on Earth. He held his head high and spoke passionately. Inside and outside the words, they are all insinuating that China is not as good as them. Same measure, even if China implemented it first, the number of monsters suppressed by the United States far exceeded that of China, ranked number 1 in the world. It's all explained. As for everyone saying that our Ministry of Defense copied China's measures, Jobs paused and sneered. This is completely nonsense. When the monster comes, all the measures achieve the same goal by different means. There is no such thing as plagiarism and copying. The measures of the Ministry of National Defense are all original by me and implemented by personally signing the documents. They are in harmony with China's. It doesn't matter at all. Face doubts. He was neither blushing nor out of breath. Categorically denied. Take all the credit on yourself. As for polls, I am very grateful to the American people for their recognition of the work of the Department of Defense. Subsequently, he jumped directly to the next question. He even uttered wild words. I want to tell everyone that the civilization test is terrible, but the great United States will eventually overcome everything, surpass China, and obtain this round of SSS level evaluation. Currently, everything is moving in the right direction. Although they do not have China's Book of Life and Death, they cannot suppress all the 001 undead instantly, but, with many powerful measures, 0.001 the number of undead is decreasing significantly. The progress of suppressing the 002 imitators is also leading the world, surpassing China. Also, researchers at the Scientific Research Institute have made huge breakthroughs in the research on 002 imitators. 002 There is a 12-sided crystal hidden in the head of the imitator. This crystal contains strange energy. Surprisingly, it can strengthen the human body and make people evolve. All of the above, they all make him confident in the future of the United States. In this round of evaluation, the United States will never stop a day and will receive the top SSS level reward, OilPipe, the world's largest video platform. After countries copied China's measures, the monster crisis in each country was finally suppressed. Every day. A large number of monsters have been suppressed. The consecutive press conferences have also given people of all countries great confidence. Restless public sentiment finally settled down. It scared me to death. I thought the monster in this round was very scary. It turns out that I can see through it just by calling his name. This round the monster has no fighting power, not as good as the 001 undead in the first round. It's too simple. It would be great if every round of civilization trials in the future were this simple. Our Sakura country has captured 20,002 imitators. I don't know if we can get an S-level evaluation. From the official videos released by various countries, the public has learned about the true combat power of the 002 imitator, and it seems that he is only good at disguise. The attack power and defense power are far inferior to the 001 undead. Many people optimistically estimate that it will not be long before all 002 imitators in the country can be eliminated. Get through this round of trials. Many countries, I am even thinking about whether I can get an S level or above rating in the
Settlement, China, Monster Research Institute. Secretary's office. Open the champagne at halftime?
Zhao Ziyan was collecting intelligence from various countries around the world and accidentally saw the comments of netizens from various countries. The corners of his mouth twitched a few times. Today, the second round of civilization trials has only reached its 9th day, but that includes the United States. People all over the world are extremely optimistic and believe that they have passed the crisis. I even felt that the second round of the civilization trial was not as good as the first round. They all forgot about it. If China had not announced the information and weaknesses of the 002 imitator, countries would still be in a state of confusion, not to mention, get settlement rewards. The dean said that this round of trials is very dangerous and is far from over. He also asked me to pay close attention to the movements of the small country. Zhao Ziyan murmured, a little solemnly. Normally, in the civilization trial, one round is stronger than the other, and it is impossible for the second round to be weaker than the first. Add the words of the dean, she always had a palpitating feeling that a storm was about to come. Later, she used her authority and began to inquire about the situation in other small countries. Half an hour later, the abnormal behavior of several small countries attracted her attention. How come these palm-sized countries suddenly station troops at the border? Zhao Ziyan swallowed and suddenly had a bad feeling. At the same time, a shocking change is quietly happening around the world. First, several small countries behaved abnormally and gave up suppressing domestic monsters, mobilized the national army and garrison troops on the border, brazenly launched a war, invading neighboring countries. Next, some small countries are even more frenzied, specifically singling out the 5 permanent members and other big countries for provocation, such as accidentally stopping a ship in the waters of Wuchang, shelling the border of Wuchang for no reason, detaining students studying abroad in Wuchang, deliberately intensify conflicts. It seems that they just want to provoke the big countries to attack them. For a while, international section, there was a lot of outrageous news. In front of the monster, several small countries are fighting in chaos, and their brains are about to be knocked out. A small country in a tiny place openly detains international students from the Wuchang Permanent Assembly. A U.S. civilian airliner was shot down by a small country. The country said it was an intern who has been fired. A small town in Gaul was brutally bombarded. Neighboring countries said that the mistake in their military exercise was purely accidental and they were not responsible for the incident. End of this chapter. Chapter 44, Internal and External Troubles. America's chosen one plan. For a while, the world went from a monster crisis to a war crisis, unrest. Some experts even predict that the S3 season is about to start, and no country will be spared. The United States, Department of Defense, what did you say? Our military base in the Pacific was bombed? Jobs stood up suddenly, showing a look of disbelief, staring at the secretary, grinning his teeth. He said, have you found out which country did it? Yes, it was done by Mara country. What? Mara country did it? Aren't they our allies? After hearing this, Jobs was suddenly stunned. His face was filled with astonishment. He originally thought the reason why the base was bombed was by China or other members of the 5 permanent members. I want to slow them down and prevent them from getting the SSS level rewards of the second round of trials. I didn't expect. It turned out to be an ally on his doorstep who stabbed him in the back. Mara country, located in the southern part of the United States, with a population of 8 million. It has always been a staunch ally of the United States. To put it more simply, actually, he is their younger brother, pointing east but not daring to go west, chasing ducks but not daring to catch chickens. The Intelligence Bureau also detected that the Mara Kingdom not only launched a surprise attack on us, but also launched attacks on several surrounding big countries. The secretary smiled bitterly and added supplementary reporting. Jobs, the look of shock on his face became even stronger. This small country, is it going to declare war on the whole world? That crazy woman in China seemed to have done something like this hundreds of years ago. Their leader, is he crazy? Jobs swallowed. His intuition told him, this matter is extraordinary and there is definitely something fishy behind it. A small country with a population of 8 million, dare to launch an attack on the top 20 major countries in the world at the same time. Is this the courage of a bear and a leopard? And it didn't take long. He received another urgent report from the Intelligence Bureau. Not just the Mara Kingdom, small countries around the world seem to be going crazy, launching attacks regardless of whether they are friends or foes. War. On the verge of breaking out, there is already a melee among the small countries. The dog's brains are about to be knocked out. Many big countries have also been provoked by these small countries, and they seem to be deliberately luring them into trouble. Conspiracy. This is definitely a conspiracy. Jobs took a breath of air and his expression became extremely solemn. The evolution of things, IT was beyond his imagination. Point 1 is not handled well. IT may trigger a global melee among countries. That's when the great powers come to an end. Nuclear war will inevitably start. Human civilization, maybe it will destroy itself without monsters taking action. Wait, monster, thinking of this, Jobs suddenly came back to his senses. I understood everything in an instant. His face was full of shock, the face turned a little pale. Could it be that the top leaders of these small countries are all 002 imitators? According to research published by the China Monster Research Institute. 002, the imitator's name is Chu Ru. Good at imitation, you can change your appearance at will and pretend to be anyone. That's all, only to explain, why did these small countries suddenly go crazy, seek their own death, and openly start a war? But hasn't China announced the weaknesses of 002 imitators to the world a long time ago? The secretary on the side was a little confused and asked, although these small countries have some backward weapons and equipment, but the 002 imitators are not very powerful. As long as they can identify their identities, they are more than enough to deal with them. Level 2. Jobs clenched his fists. It's like Kong Ming is possessed and has figured everything out. China only announced ways to deal with ordinary 002 imitators, but did not say, this method is effective against second-level imitators. It is very possible, even they haven't mastered the method of dealing with second-level imitators. The more he thought about it, the more frightened he became. At this moment, he finally understood why the 002 imitator came in the second round instead of the first. Why are all the 002 imitators they captured in the United States First Order? Because the second-level imitator has no weaknesses. We were too naive. Recalling his previous bold words, he felt even more ridiculous. Now, there are provocations from small countries outside, trying to drag the world into the quagmire of war. There is a second-level imitator inside, hidden in every corner. Critical moment. IT will definitely give them a fatal blow to the United States. Internal and external troubles. The situation is critical. Let alone obtaining the SSS level. Whether you can survive the crisis is a question. The Chosen One plan must be started in advance. He took a deep breath and said in an extremely heavy tone, but the research at the Scientific Research Institute has not been completed yet, so we started it rashly. The secretary was shocked and couldn't help but remind, I'm afraid it will cause great negative effects on the human body. Impact. The Chosen One Project IT was proposed by the Scientific Research Institute, with the 12-sided crystal in the head of the 002 imitator as the core. A plan to introduce the energy into normal people's bodies so that they can gain supernatural abilities. I can't control that much anymore. Jobs gritted his teeth and said resolutely, notify the Scientific Research Institute that the Chosen One plan will be implemented immediately. China Monster Research Institute. Dean's office, sure enough, it still showed up. Yang Mo couldn't help but sigh as he listened to Zhao Ziyan's report. This scene. He looks familiar. In the past life. I experienced it once. 002. The terrifying thing about the imitator is that he can transform into anyone. Just give him a way to reach out. He can climb to the top leadership positions in any country and then control the entire country. The easiest ones to control are naturally those small countries with imperfect systems and insufficient execution capabilities they want to use these small countries to start a world-destroying war. Let the countries consume themselves, sit back and reap the benefits. Dean, we in China have also been provoked. What should we do now? Zhao Ziyan frowned, her face full of worry. This hand of the monster. So disgusting, deliberate provocation. It's not like fighting back, it's not like not fighting back. I have already communicated with the military. They will handle the external crisis. Yang Mo spoke slowly and said in a deep voice, our research institute is responsible. Just eliminate the 002 imitators in the country. Today there are internal and external troubles. IT must be solved one by one. Compared to provocations from the outside world, the second-order imitators lurking inside are the real threat. If you give them time, sooner or later, they will replace all the top leaders of China. That time nothing can be saved. But didn't you say that second-level imitators have no weaknesses? Zhao Ziyan was a little surprised and couldn't help but ask, then how do we find them out? BR002 imitator and 001 immortal, there is a big difference. After the undead break through to the second level, they will kidnap the city and use it as food to speed up their development. They are more like reckless men. After the imitator breaks through to the second level, he will climb up step by step, taking his place and climbing to the top of the former will jump out on its own. The latter, like maggots in the bones, lurking in the shadows. IT makes people feel helpless. Well, please give me a monthly recommendation ticket.